In a slight twist to the usual format of this podcast, our sponsors, who have generously and loyally supported us from day one, have simply an amazing product which I feel should be shared to our wider transport audience. Nathan Koren, founder and managing director, is here to tell you about how they are empowering transport planners everywhere with their product, Podaris. Nathan, tell us more about your background and how Podaris came to life.
Well, I've always wanted to make radically better cities, cities that are more livable and sustainable than they are today. And this is something that I was into from a very young age, actually, drawing, science fiction cityscapes and stuff. At the time, transport planning wasn't really on my radar at all. I thought it was just about making traffic flow smoother and buses run on time, and that's about it. Didn't really grab me. The visionaries who wrote about making cities radically better were generally architects, so I became an architect. And as an architect, I did a lot of work on transit-oriented developments, and that was great. But it became increasingly clear to me that actually architecture is not what will shape the cities of the future. It's transport that shapes cities. At an urban scale, transport architecture is mostly just responding to the opportunities and the problems which transport creates. So 15 years ago, I pivoted my career and became a transport planner. Happily, this coincided with a number of revolutions in transport planning, which are still ongoing. I think the field has become much more than just about making traffic flow better and buses run on time. Some of this is driven by technology. We're seeing these revolutions in automation, electrification, smart cards, transit apps, and so forth. Some of this is driven by environmental concerns and the urgency of cleaning our air and decarbonizing our economy. And some of this is driven by a sort of more holistic reimagining of how transport can relate to the built environment in people's lives as a whole through things like active travel, placemaking, and so forth. In any case, it's been a really exciting time to be involved in the industry. I have run consultations on site in something like 15 countries and really seen the positive difference that transport planning can make. But I also have in that time have seen that there's some profound gaps and challenges facing the industry. Major projects are almost always go far over budget and can be delayed by years, sometimes decades. And this is a problem which has been getting worse for a long, long time. Transport planning has, by some measures, the lowest productivity growth of any sector of the economy. And I've seen a study which says it has the second lowest levels of digitization right after hunting and fishing. So there's some really profound challenges to solve. And no, it's true. And I, after a while working as a consultant, I came to the conclusion that we really need some better tools to solve these problems. The other part of my background is I grew up in Silicon Valley. I've always been very sort of embedded in the computing world. I had kind of accidentally co-founded a couple of software companies over the years. And it seemed to me that there was an opportunity brought about by the advent of cloud collaboration technologies to make a really profound difference in the way that transport planning works as an industry with new kinds of tools. And Podaris is my attempt to make that happen.
Yeah. And I just noticed you said that I grew up in Silicon Valley. I was going to say there's not a local accent, but you are now based in London in the UK. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I've been here since 2007.
Yeah, fantastic. And is that really just to kind of spearhead the business? Is that where the base needs to be, or is that for personal reasons?
It's partly for personal reasons, but also, I mean, London is an absolutely great place to run this kind of business out of. I think I was looking at I look at isochrones are fun, obviously, and somebody made a map of mean connectivity to all other humans in the world, and the most connected spot on Earth was Heathrow Airport. It's if you're going to do a global business, this is a good place to do it from. And we have customers all over the world. So it's London is very much a good place to do that from.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's move on. Why don't you tell the viewers what problems Podaris is solving right now, and where is it heading in the future?
Sure thing. So, Podaris can do a lot of different things, from route and service modeling to fleet sizing and costing to high-level parametric engineering for fixed infrastructure systems, to accessibility analysis, various kinds of quality metrics, basically everything you might need for a benefit cost analysis to sift schemes and build an indicative business case. So, let's say you need to review your bus network, identify gaps and inefficiencies in the service or coverage, rapidly model a number of different potential solutions, test those ideas with stakeholders, and develop a business case to support the scheme. Yeah, Podaris is great at all of that. Or if you're planning a new development and want to understand its connectivity to the public transport network and accessibility to key services and city centers and so forth. Again, that's very much
Sure.
what Podaris can help with. The thing which really differentiates us from existing tools is that we are a web-based application which places a real emphasis on collaboration, accessibility, and speed. So the product is intrinsically collaborative throughout. You can use it to engage with other professionals or with non-technical stakeholders, and you can get everybody planning together in the loop in real time, figuring out what they want to do very, very quickly. And this emphasis on speed, I think, is quite important. One of the problems that I kind of diagnosed in the industry is that we tend to have two ways of doing things. We can do things quickly or we can do things well, and both are important. Sometimes you just need to test a lot of different ideas out and sift through them quickly, and you need to be able to share those ideas with all of your stakeholders and so forth. And as an industry, the way we've tended to do that is just by drawing fat lines on paper or marking up a map on PowerPoint or something like that, which is great for speed and flexibility and shareability, but it does not lead to high quality analysis. I've seen sort of rule of thumb analysis done that way, which was off by an order of magnitude or more. And it's not a great way to sift a scheme. On the other hand, we also have these power tools, which are fantastic for creating really detailed and accurate models of transport systems. But they can take a long time to model. Once you build a model, you're not going to radically change it because that might take months more work. And that model is locked away on somebody's desktop. It's not really necessarily very accessible to other disciplines or stakeholders. And that kind of modeling is great. You got to be able to do that. But there's nothing in between. In between the napkin sketch and the high fidelity simulation. And Podaris is meant to bridge that gap. Basically, we provide a way of napkin sketching, which gets most of the accuracy you need, up to a point. And that can be very, very powerful. In terms of where we're heading in the future, we're continuously building support for more modes. So we'll be moving into planning public realm as we support active travel more and more. So not just looking at the transport network, but also looking at the physical implications of that for the built environment. And we're continuously working on making Podaris more integrated with the rest of the transport planning ecosystem. So we support already basically every kind of standard data you might want for transport data or GIS data and so forth, but we'll increasingly be building API bridges to other applications, and really we envision us as one node in a web of interconnected applications that will form the sort of transport planning system of the future.
Sounds really exciting, Nathan. But why would a consultancy or an authority, and I know you deal with both, why would one of those perhaps schedule a call with you?
Well, of course, from my perspective, everyone should be using Podaris for everything, of course. But no, in practice, if you're planning new services, or you're doing feasibility studies, or in particular, if you're looking at introducing new modes to your transport network, doing any kind of multimodal planning, I think that we have something quite unique and valuable to offer there. If you're doing planning, which would really benefit from having stakeholders in the loop in a very sophisticated kind of way, a very powerful kind of way, then that can also be quite beneficial. And I could talk about that in terms of case studies. If you need to work collaboratively across a number of different offices or with clients or suppliers and or technology vendors and so forth, again, very powerful for that. And ultimately, I think the ones that should be talking to us now, though, are the ones who are really hungry to embrace change and kind of agility. If you're very comfortable with the way you're doing things right now, then it will become part of your workflow eventually. But if you really want to ride the wave of innovation that's happening in the industry, I think then talk to us. It's something where the tools are very powerful, but they also require a certain kind of outlook in order to really
Fine.
maximize the value that they bring.
Fine. And can you tell us about maybe some of the positive impacts or a case study that Podaris has had to existing clients or service users?
Sure, yeah. Now, of course, I need to actually, let my customers tell their own stories, so I have to kind of anonymize these slightly. But in one case, we had a consultancy customer that was tasked with planning a new strategic bus network for an entire nation, and they had a very short time frame to do this, and it was quite challenging because the actual operators of this bus network were very fragmentary, scattered over a large number of private operators and local authorities running public services. And the traditional way to do this would be for the master planners to create a study and then present that to all of the stakeholders, who would then say, "Wow, that's brilliant. We have no objections at all. Just go do that." No, I'm kidding. Of course, they'd never say that. No transport planner has ever heard that. Of course, presenting the study would kick off a round of politics. What they did with Podaris instead was, as they planned this new network for the nation, they actually involved all of the local authorities and transport operators. Every day, they would send them an engagement link that would allow them to see the plans in progress and provide feedback on those plans essentially in real time. And by doing that, the master planners were able to harness an incredible amount of local knowledge, which would never have been in any data set. We want to do data-driven planning, but the fact is, a lot of the reality of the transport systems of the world live in people's heads, and unless you connect with those people, you're not going to get it. So by doing the engagement that way, they were able to get the stakeholder feedback on a daily basis, incorporate it into the plans, and then the stakeholders could see how their comments were being considered and responded to the very next day. And that was incredibly powerful, and it meant that not only did they finish the project in half the time they expected, they secured a huge amount of stakeholder buy-in in the process. And I'd like to think they ended up with a much better network as a result of that. So I think that's a very powerful example of how it's been used. Another really interesting example, maybe a little less generalizable, but still quite interesting, is a well-known company in Silicon Valley who used us to plan the expansion of their campus complexes across Silicon Valley. This company ran over 500 shuttle bus routes for employees. So as they were doing their development planning, looking where to put new offices, where to put employee housing, and so forth, they also needed to be looking at that in tandem with how they would reconfigure their own transport system to serve those employees. And doing traditional means, they thought that they would be able to do a few scenarios per year, but with Podaris they could do a few scenarios per day, and again test those scenarios via the engagement function with their internal and external stakeholders. And so yeah, much of the future shape of Silicon Valley is something which has actually been planned out in Podaris at this point. So
Fantastic.
yeah, those are two good examples of how we've been used.
And just before I let you go, I think you do offer a kind of a demonstration if somebody wants to get in contact. I know we're going to put up a specific web page here for anyone that wants to check out Podaris. We'll put the link below. Is there any other way they can get in touch with you? You're on social media, anything like that?
Yeah, we are on LinkedIn and Twitter, or whatever it's called these days. And yeah, I think probably LinkedIn is the main one, really. Yeah, we're happy to do demos for any organization that's interested in. We don't really have a canned demo because there is so many different things that we can do. So we'd like to get to know you a bit first to figure out what is most applicable to your particular needs, and then we will, create a demo which really highlights how it can address those needs.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode of Practical Perspectives has been proudly supported by Podaris, the trusted toolkit empowering transport planners everywhere to plan faster, smarter, and more collaboratively. Experience the future of transport planning today at podaris.com/podcast.